Yeah, just want to see
Welcome everyone to the meeting of the Joint Archives Board. My name's Councillor Ryan Hope. I'm the chair of this meeting. This is a joint meeting of both Dorset Council and BCP Council, and we're here today to discuss several items on the agenda. So welcome all. First of all, can I ask, has there been any apologies?
No apologies for this meeting, Chair.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 2, declarations of interest. Have we been pre-notified of any declarations of interest? As always, members, if any declarations do come up during the meeting, you can declare them at the relevant points. Moving on to item 3, which are minutes of the last meeting, and I ask the committee if you agree and confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of February 2025. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Laura Beddoe, seconded by Councillor Scott Florrick. And I presume all those are in favour. Yeah. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4, public participation. We have no public participation pre-submitted. So we move on to item 5, which are questions from members. And once again, we've not been notified of any questions. So we shall move on to the main substantive item of the agenda this afternoon, which is item 6, which is the Joint Archives Service Budget, Monitoring and Budget Setting for 26 to 27. And I shall ask Sam Johnson, the Service Manager for Archives and Records, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. And just to say, we've got Hannah with us from accountancy today. So any tricky questions or things that I can't deal with, Hannah certainly can. So if that's the case. So if I just walk through the report, if I may, and then obviously come back to the recommendations. The section 1, you'll see the gives the overview of the budgetary position, which is that we are within budget this year. We're seeking an uplift of around £32,000 in order to get us to a sort of standstill level for next year's budgets. In other words, to hold our own and to avoid moving into any kind of restructure or service review situation. On section 2, what I've tried to do there is to provide some context, some sort of value for money and other information. I think I draw out there the fact that we've got 2.2 project staff, FTE project staff working in the service in addition to our core funded staff. And we've managed to bring in £78,000 in external funding from 2 separate Dorset estates to work on their archives. Again, I need to reference as well, thanks to the Dorset Archives Trust, because a lot of that money has been gift aided, which is added to the value of what we've been able to receive. And I was pleased to be able to report as well that over the last 15 years, the total sum of externally funded income to the service is just over the £1 million mark now, various projects. Under 2.5, just to say as well, I think it's, again, perhaps important to note, there's been £800,000 worth of investment in the Dorset History Centre building. The works that took quite a significant period of time but completed earlier this year meant that we've now that it's in good working order and certainly very nice and weathertight, I'm pleased to report. So moving on to section 3, you've got the current position, financial year position there, and under section 4, the budgetary positions of the two councils. I'd just like to mention in the 3.2 that we've been able to make a minor saving, which will contribute to next year's meeting next year's budget requirement of £9,000, which has resulted from one of our staff members dropping down a day a week. So we've taken that as a saving and added it to our total required for next year. So the sort of critical bit, I suppose, is under section 5. We require an overall uplift around about 5% in order to maintain our position, much of which relates to costs which are beyond our control. In fact, virtually all of it, salary and the building and energy costs. Those are the key things that we're looking at here. There's very little else involved, as you can see from that table under 5.1. So the total uplift, suggested uplifts are there under 5.2 of around £15,000 and £16,000 respectively. However, what we've been able to do, due to the staff saving that I mentioned earlier and an anticipated income uplift of £20,000 from Ancestry, who we are currently just about to sign a new contract with. This is a speculative figure, but it's been, I've tested it with the Ancestry themselves several times to ensure that I am on the right sort of number. They're suggesting a pretty safe figure of around £20,000, which will offset some of that uplift requirement that we have. So, and in addition to that, the benefit under 5.4 there, wanted to note that as part of that new contract signing with Ancestry, which hasn't yet happened, but they've also, as part of this deal, offered to provide the Ancestry subscription, the library edition, to both BCP and Dorset Libraries, which is about £10,000 to each library service, which I assume, but it's not written down in contract form yet, but would last for the duration of the contract. It would exist for the duration of the contract. So that's £10,000 a year ongoing for each library service as a saving. So under 5.5, if you take all of the above into account, the actual suggested uplift from each of the two councils has dropped to 7,116 for Dorset and 7,439 for VCP Council. So those are the figures that, if the board is willing to recommend, would go forward to the executives for approval. Under section 6, you've got the reserve position, which directly relates again to one of the recommendations, the second recommendations. Currently, it's around £56,000. It was capped at £50,000. You might well remember. It's risen slightly due to additional minor savings. The suggested use of this reserve is that we put it towards our match fund for the lottery application, which I'll be talking about more in another report, which would allow us to go to lottery with around about 10% contribution to what we need for the first stage of this project, should it be approved. So that's the summary, I think, Chair. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Sam. Anyone got any questions?
Yeah,
Thank you. Sam, can you just clarify? I'm just a little bit confused around some of the wording. So at 5.2, the proposal is that the Joint Archives Board below would represent increase in. So that's the increase. So let's look at Dorset Council, 16,331. And then it says at 5.5, 7,116, and then similar for BCP. At 5.6, it said it is the above sums respectively that the board is asked to recommend approval of to both things. So are we recommending both, or is the top one minus? I'm not quite clear on what.
This has been a work in progress, and I'm
Okay.
not sure that I presented it all well there. It's the figures under 5.5 that we're
Okay.
talking about. It's the lower figures,
Okay.
because mitigating the
Yeah.
figures in 5.2 with those other savings I've mentioned, the ancestry income and the small saving on salary, has reduced it to the figures in 5.5.
Sure. So it's just so what you said is the case. It's just 5.6 seems to contradict that wording, but I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Sorry.
And also well done, because it's less money, which is great. But I just wanted to be really, for the minutes, just really clear on that. Thanks, Chair.
Any other questions? No. Okay, let's move to the point now where I seek a proposer and seconder for the recommendations. Do I have a proposer?
Yes, happy to propose.
Thank you very much. And seconded? Josh. And we'll move to the vote. All those in favour, show of hands. Thank you very much. Now I'll move on to.
Can I just intervene and say I'm abstaining because I can't locate the paperwork, so I all I've got is what Sam has just read out. I haven't managed to locate the paperwork and see the figures in front of me in detail, so I'm abstaining for that reason and that reason alone. I'm sure it's fine, but just because I haven't actually seen it for myself.
Just,
the link
yeah, we can send you the link across now for the rest of the meeting.
on the public.
And it's on the public website. But just to confirm also, unless I'm wrong, I think only members in the room can vote on the agenda items anyway.
Right. Okay.
So those joining online can speak to an item, but you have to still physically be in the room to vote.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think so.
I'm looking at Democratic Services to make sure I'm right there.
Sorry, yes.
Yes, thanks, Johnson. Okay, we move forward to item 7 on the agenda, which is the Joint Archives Service Fees and Charges. Once again, I'm going to hand over to Sam to introduce, please.
This is the annual review, as you'll be familiar with anyone who's been attending these meetings. So much of it is a repetition or similar version of what's been said on previous occasions. However, just to walk you through the report, what we've done here, as we've done in previous years, is try to meet the income generation targets that have been set by the council on the one, Dorset Council on the one hand, but also to try and make it a realistic increase in charges where we feel that there's a tolerance to pay those fees, to find the optimum point really between those two things, because we found under 2.2 I've suggested there that we have encountered, it is largely anecdotal, but it is real, increased resistance to paying some of the charges that we currently levy. Not everybody by any means, but there's a certain amount of pushback. What we've also done, as in previous years, is rigorously look at what other services of a similar kind of charging and make sure that we're about right. It's not very scientific, but it is, we find ourselves usually somewhere in the midpoint between the high and the low of what other services are charging, usually towards a sensible medium position. Under 2.3, you can see the sort of income levels that we're bringing in. We're obviously trying to up and increase our income wherever possible. We're looking to greater numbers in the future, certainly greater numbers of digital images being available online. That's something that we hope to develop much more with the use of Preservica and our online catalogue to be, to add to what we can realistically hope to bring in. So in essence, I think that's been our approach. It's been our sort of philosophy with trying to achieve an increased income target wherever possible, but also to make it realistic enough for people to actually want to pay it. And that's what you'll see if you look to the appendix to the rear of the report. As in previous years, we've gone through and looked at every single line in there, and we tried to raise where we feel it's sensible and appropriate to do so. And we've left other charges at the level that they are in the current financial year, because this will apply from April 26. Obviously, there is, you could argue that any of these could be raised, but I think the folk that actually work with the public would argue that we're not going to encounter any additional income. We may even get less if we tried to uplift in other areas. So that's our approach. That's the tariff proposal for April 26 to 27. I think that's everything I was going to say, unless there are any questions.
Thank you very much.
Sorry,
I've got to start and go around the room.
Start with me. I only wanted to say that I've had to do some family research and get some papers, not down here. And the charges seem not low, but quite right. It's an expensive business, and if you're serious about it, you'll pay. It's only people that think, oh, I'd like that, but I don't want to pay for it. So no, so I'm totally in favour of your plan.
Yes, so same as Leslie. The only bit that I would pick out, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but the section for film and TV. I mean, for residents, I think we're spot on. I think Leslie's absolutely right. If you want a service, you can pay for it, but a very modest increase is reasonable. But the film and TV, is that around sort of commercial companies, because their budgets are huge, and I wonder if that's something that could be stretched, or is it not the type of things that we deal with?
don't get that many requests.
Okay.
So I suppose it's a relatively. We had one in this week, ironically, but
Okay.
they're not very common. And actually, we've gone through. We are working with Dorset Council's sort of There's a part of the comms team that
Yeah.
deal with television requests for media access via TV. So we're working with them. So these numbers, I think, are again about right. Surprising, television companies are the first in my experience to plead poverty when you ask. I think it's their view might be being unfair here. Their view is that we're lucky to have the interest shown in us to come in the first place, never mind charging for it. So
Be free
we do extract
exposure.
funding, but it's not always easy, and they're usually the first to make it, as I say, to plead poverty and say they can't do it.
Thank you.
Okay. A couple of questions from myself, Sam, as well. I see there's a couple of lines in this budget that don't show a previous year's fee against them. Is that because they're new services that we're offering? That's good news that we're looking at different ways of generating income and providing the information.
Any way to extract funding in a reasonable and legal way from users, yeah.
Other than that, I think I fully support the position. I think we have to be sensible in what we charge, because if we charge too much or above the standard sort of value, we're only going to drive people away. So I think this is a sensible set of fees and charges going into the next year. Can't see anyone else looking to speak.
Councillor Martin.
Sorry, sorry, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Couple of points. I totally agree with your point, Chairman, about the price point on that. We discussed this the other day, and I think this is a really sensible approach. The main point for me speaking was Sam and I have had several conversations in the last couple of years about the profile of the archives, raising that profile, particularly in BCP, because it's sort of slightly, I think, out of sight, out of mind. And Sam obviously came to speak to Cavan, didn't you, Sam? Was it last month or the month before, about the work of the History Centre and then the archives? So I was wondering, I couldn't quite hear what you were saying about the film and TV office at BCP, but I wonder whether, you were saying you don't get that many approaches from film and TV companies. I wonder whether that's because they're not necessarily aware that this amazing resource exists, and what more we can do to raise its profile, particularly in relation to, potentially untapped sources of income from film and TV production companies. That's just a kind of, it just fits in with some of the conversations we've been having previously about profile and what more we can do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think there's anyone else, so we are going to move forward now, and I seek a proposer and seconder for the recommendations, please. Hello, and I'm happy to second. So all those in favour? Very much. We move forward now to the last main report in our agenda, which is item 8, which is the Joint Archive Service Development Plan for 21 to 26, and this is the monitoring report. And over to you again, please, Sam.
Thank you, Chair. I won't dwell on all the content of the report. There's quite a lot of words in there, which will take a while to go through, but I'll just try and pick out some of what I consider to be the key bits and highlights. In the executive summary, I've hopefully summarised what I think are the kind of principal achievements in the last 12 months or so, but I'll mention these as I'm going through, but they're there as a kind of an easy reference guide for anyone who wants to look at them. Also to say that this service development plan due to expire next year. It's run from 2021 to 26, so it's obviously coming to the end of its life. We've got every intention, of course, of revising and renewing and producing a new version of this or something similar. It was really just to say that contingent on that is really the success or otherwise we might have with the lottery application we're due to make. We've got to see if we're successful with that bid. It will fundamentally change the way that the service will operate over the next several years. If we're not, we'll obviously have to reconsider what we do, but the service plan will reflect that in terms of what we will be seeking to deliver as a consequence. So just to mention that, there'll be something new to see next year. If you this one's been around for a little while, of course. So moving through the report, sections 1 and 2, I think are well known, but just to reiterate, I suppose the two key challenges for the service really are that question around capital investment and our need to bring in serious funding to allow us to expand the repositories, which are nearly full. I think nearly 96, just over 96% full now. When I think back to, I wasn't around then, but think back to 1991 when the building opened, it was about 40% capacity. So it's grown by that quantity over the 34 or so years of its life. So it really is becoming fairly critical. Obviously, all our hopes are pinned on a successful bid to lottery March of next year. The second point there is just around corporate records, and I'm always at pains to not wag my finger in a critical sense at all, but it is our wish, certainly as an archive service, to be able to acquire more effectively than we're doing at the moment the records of our two funding councils. I know Matty and I have discussed this on several occasions. More work needs to be done on our part as much as anyone else's to ensure that that corporate memory is safely secured, both increasingly in the electronic digital world, but also in the paper sort of legacy side as well. So it was just to say that that's something we're acutely aware of. Moving on, I've already mentioned, I think, that we've got 2.2 additional staff members working away on externally funded projects at the moment, which is great, obviously having that extra capacity in the service. And then the section 4, public services, I won't dwell on. There's a lot of information in there, but I think it's good to relate back and report to you that there's still a high level of interest in archives, both original and digital. I think the under section 4.3 there, you can see that we actually got over just under 14,500 original documents out last year for people to view in the search room, which, based on there's been a declining number of people which is coming in, personal visits, which is about leveled off, I think, now, but they're using an awful lot more material when they come in. And that's been counterbalanced to some significant degree by the number of remote inquiries we're getting, people who are picking things up on the catalogue or some other online source and are writing in for further information, usually via email. But, so that's been really positive. And also under 4.8, I'd like to just note that our 2 apprentices within the archive service are doing really well and are due to complete their 3-year programme. Next year, they'll be qualified archivists at that point. On to under section 5, I always like to put in here this section about our museums development colleague who works alongside us at the History Centre. She's done a fantastic job as in previous years in working across Dorset and BCP council areas. Again, I won't read you through the activities that she's been involved in, but a lot of work there, a lot of museums benefiting from her advice and guidance, particularly in terms of external funding and specific specialist areas around governance and income generation. She's also set up a new museums advisory group to work across museums from the 2 council areas to pick up on key areas of museum interest and develop them into sort of work streams. They had their first meeting at Dorset Museum and the second one recently at the Tank Museum. So that's been really positive. On the community engagement side, under 6, just to note there that our volunteering is still really strong. We're constantly, we'd like to do more with more volunteers, but we have a limit in terms of capacity as to what we can manage. But you can see there's been at least 23, I think it was 30 at one point on our books during the course of the year, and I think 1,380 hours there were recorded in terms of time contributed to our work through their contribution. Going through the work of the community on the community development side, I'm particularly pleased to pick up on the work that we've been doing in Bournemouth with the Hebrew and Reform Synagogue congregations. We started off with a couple of small grants from the Rothschild Foundation, firstly to employ a consultant to come in and survey with the congregations their records, and then secondly to on a second occasion to help us fund some extra resourcing to go into the synagogues, which are both moving premises for those people that aren't aware. they're both moving on after long periods of stay in their old buildings, and we've been successful in being able to transfer across to Dorset History Centre about 70 boxes of archives. There's more to come. They need to complete their moves and obviously acquaint themselves with the new surroundings. But we're looking to expand on this work. The Rothschild Foundation, the representatives coming down, the grants manager in December, and wants to talk to us about how we can do more of a community engagement project around additional records and information that could come in potentially to sit alongside these official records. So that's been a really positive, but very long term as well. I think that perhaps important to stress that it's only as a result of probably a decade's worth of gentle engagement that we got to the point that we did. So really pleased about that. And the last bullet point there on that page, just to say, the Sounds of the Southwest project, which is a big regional digitisation project for sound. We've been closely involved in that, and the loss of material that was formerly sitting on rather risky formats, old tapes and things like that, things that are likely to shrivel up and die at some point, have now been transferred to digital. So that's been really good. I think I've probably said everything I need to say under section 7 and core boards, and the digital preservation, just leading on there, section 8. Again, a lot of really good work around the increasing volume of material that's coming in digitally. You won't be surprised to hear more and more of it coming our way as people really work in the digital sphere and don't create paper records anymore, many of them. And in fact, one of the aspects of our lottery project, if we're successful, is to really take on the whole question of digital preservation in the wider community, because I think I would say this, we're people, humans that is, are fantastic at generating content, but we're not very good at working out how we're going to keep it and access it in the future. And one of the things we're very aware of is that organisations, town and parish councils, community organisations need to be helped and advised as to how to manage that. I think putting bits of paper in a box and safely storing it on a shelf is one thing, and it's quite easy to grasp how that operates. I think the digital side is much more complex, so that's something we're really keen to take out and develop widely and spread the knowledge and skills as to how to do it. Under section 9, our conservator has been working as ever, working really hard. Lots of external contracts coming in, lots of external organisations she's been working with. And nice to note yesterday at the pool, the official opening of the Pool Museum, the Long Spey Charter, the 1285 founding document of the pool, normally held at the History Centre for Safekeeping, was on display last night, which is great to see, along with a lot of pottery materials as well, I should add, from our held at History Centre too. Under collections management, I've got under section 10, that is a nice list there, I hope, of interesting and really important, some of it, records that have come into us in the last 12 months. And nice to say as well, our online catalogue has now swelled to 420,000 entries. And again, that link between accessibility of information in a catalogue form and people being able to find it, and then coming to the History Centre or making inquiries about it, is very strong. It's very clear to us that collections that have been catalogued and are visible and discoverable, people ask about them, people use them. If they're sitting in boxes and nobody quite knows what's there because they're not visible, obviously nobody asks us about them. So there's a strong but very obvious link, I think, to make. Just under projects there, just some nice ongoing work there. The Wessex Water project, funded by Wessex Water, is well underway now. It runs to the end of March 2027. The two staff members busily working away on that. The work on Bournemouth's yellow buses, which was funded by the Business Archives Council, concluded in March, and that's all available to the online, that catalogue. So that was a really nice, small but very positive project. And great to say as well that working with the William Barnes Society and Dorset Archives Trust, £36,000 was raised in the last 12 months or so, which has allowed us to move forward with a project to catalogue William Barnes's archive, the Dorset dialect poet. And our archivist who worked on the Hardy archive has moved straight into that project, so we've been able to retain her to do this work, which is great. It's been a really positive experience working with the Barnes Society. We crowdfunded about £16,000 with the Archives Trust. Some small cataloguing, some small grants came in, and so collectively we raised that sum in a relatively good order, good shortish time, which was great. Hardy Archive project concluded in October after 19 months, and that catalogue is now fully available online to view. I'm not quite sure how many items there are in it, but it's around about 6,000 or 7,000. All of Hardy's material from Max Gate, including all the correspondence that was gathered together after his death. It's about 5,000 items there. So really important collection, internationally significant, and it's working with Dorset Museum. It's heading towards a consideration for a designation application to the Arts Council, which is the highest level of acknowledgement you can get for the importance of a particular collection. Under section 13, Dorset Archives Trust, again, really important. Also our chair here, all the ways in which the Archives Trust helps us acquire things for the History Centre, both documents purchased at auction, fundraising for projects, and increasingly we're looking into the capital project if we're successful, and the things that the Dorset Archives Trust, only the Archives Trust can really do for us by way of fundraising and profile raising. So moving into the capital project, section 14, which is the big piece of work we very much hope will be our sort of bread and butter for the next 4 to 5 years if we're successful. I've summarised in this section where we've got to with it. We're due to submit this week. It's been a long, and anyone who's written one of these things, quite a convoluted process. There's multiple documents that need to be provided. It's not just an application. They want to know our equivalent, the inside leg measurement, and certainly on the accountancy side, Hannah's colleagues have been excellent, brilliant at helping us get things like cash flows and income and expenditure projections right. You can see there that the total sum, the total project is, the numbers have moved around slightly since this was written. It's been as recent as that. Total project value is about £5.3 million. Our request lottery over the 2 stages, that's the development and delivery, is about 4.7 million. Dorset Council's committed £540,000, and the balance, just under £300,000, we will be fundraising ourselves to bring it up to the full sum required. There's a significant contingency and inflation figure in that number as well, which lottery insists upon due to the fluctuation in prices, and as I'm sure you're very aware. The 3 things we hope to achieve, one which you're very familiar with, which is the extension to the repositories to provide about 22,000 additional box spaces. The second part is to improve and reshape the front of the building and some of the public facilities that we have. And then the third part, under those 4 sections, 4 bullet points, which I won't go through them all, but they're the basis of our activity plan, which is the bit that lottery, if it likes our project, will probably be the deciding factor. It's about the way we engage with the public, our audiences, and use the collections to best effect that they're really interested in. So yes, that will be submitted this week. We'll find out in March of 26, and we'll go from there. I think that was everything I was going to say, Chair. Thank you. I'm sorry, I waffled on a lot.
That's all right. Thank you very much, Sam. I'll open up now to any questions. Scott.
You touched on a little bit about the things going more digital with things coming from town councils. I know we send you boxes of things. Does the service currently use AI or anything, or do you see AI as a potential future way to streamline services and cut time and costs?
I'm sure people who are much more technically adept than I could probably
Expect you to be more than me.
There are certainly things I can conceive of, that, for example, cataloguing, where if AI reaches a particular point where it's trusted to do things that humans can do. I know it already is in some areas, but for example, reading documents, possibly historic documents with unusual script, and then producing a meaningful description of them, then I think that's something that could be almost certainly done quicker by a machine than we're able to do currently with human intervention. as long as the human aspect is present and we're checking and confirming things, I think I'd be nervous to just, you know, as anybody would, I suspect, to hand it over to a machine and say, you know, please catalogue this box of material, and we're not going to check anything. Beyond that, I'm sure there are good, clever ways of providing things to people quicker, faster than we're able to do at the moment. It is a, you know, it's not a quick business right now. I think digitally, there's going to be a steep, you know, upward demand for all our digital content in the future, more than there is at the moment. As we're able to produce more digital copies of things, digital images of things, I think more will be viewed. And, you know, in the fullness of, I mean, part of what we're trying to say in our application is we'll always want people to come to the History Centre to see things in the flesh, but we're equally keen to reduce the need for them to come, to fly, to take drive or whatever to Dorchester if they don't need to, because they can see it online, they can get all the information they need online and take that aspect of the sort of experience out of it. So I think in broad terms, yes, I'm just not entirely sure how it's going to play out. I might have retired by then.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Martin online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention some conversations that are sort of starting at BCP. And obviously Sam mentioned the opening of Poole Museum last night. One of the conversations that I've been having, and it's become apparent in the last few months, obviously maybe the last 2 years for me, but just how much Sam and the archives and the History Centre is plugged into so much of different parts of culture, you know, particularly the museums and the libraries. So talking from a BCP point of view. And one of the things that we're looking at in terms of where do things go from here in terms of our libraries and the museum, for example, is about joining these things up a little bit more. So some of you may not be aware that Cabinet passed the BCP library strategy last week, which involves keeping all 24 libraries, but it also involves a significant role for arts and culture within libraries. I know that sounds obvious because libraries are places of art and culture and learning, but actually using them much more, actually looking at them, for example, as 24 venues, additional venues. Anyway, I won't go into all that now, but one of the conversations I had last night with colleagues at the museum and actually the Arts Council as well was the acronym CALM, so culture, archives, libraries and museums, in terms of all these parts of our cultural landscape and our heritage landscape should be joined up much more. And I think we're at the point in BCP where we need to look at a way that we can do that for future sustainability, but actually purely because it makes an awful lot of sense because all these things are interlinked. So it doesn't require a discussion now, but I just thought I would mention it because it's been on my mind for a while, and that was crystallized last night because of the opening of Poole Museum and some of the conversations that are beginning to be had. And that also feeds back, I think, into the issue that we were referring to earlier about the profile of the History Centre and the archives. And I think that could be an important part of that. So it's maybe just something to think about and for us to talk about maybe at another meeting, and we'll see how we progress that at the at BCP in the coming months. And in terms of retiring, I don't think I will definitely be retired, Sam, before some of this comes into place. But hey, no harm in trying to get some spade work done. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Got anybody else? I think if I can speak, I'm sure I speak for us all as well when I pass our thanks to the staff at the centre and of course the volunteers. I think through this report we've seen how much the volunteers underpin the work and support the work and carry out the work over at the History Centre. So I think I speak for us all, and I'm sure everyone will join me in thanking the volunteers and the staff for their efforts, successes like we're reading in this annual report don't just happen. They happen by the people that are driving them. So Sam, please pass our thanks back to everyone involved, and especially the volunteers. Going to move us forward then. I'm looking for someone to pose the recommendations. Mr. Deadman, and seconded by Councillor Forack. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. We move forward now to item 9, which is urgent items. There are no urgent items. Followed by item 10, exempt business, and there is no exempt business. So at 14:41, I thank you all for coming and close the meeting.